Well, the film was basically just an offer, really, from the producers. They came to me and said, "Do you want to make this into a film?" And I said, "Yes, that sounds like a great idea." And then, what had happened was I had done a stage production where I had rewritten the Henrik Ibsen play from the late 19th century, The Wild Duck, and I'd kind of created a modern version set in a Australian city, basically, which focused on a very modern family undergoing a kind of traumatic event in the midst of revelations about the past. And the audiences in Australia kind of responded really strongly to it, and both of the producers, Jan Chapman and Nicole O'Donoghue, had seen it and both wanted to make a movie out of it, and they asked me if that was something I was interested in, basically. And then I rewrote it again to be a film. I didn't really rewrite the dialogues. I kind of changed the story and then wrote new dialogues. There is no single thing that anyone says in our film that represents anything in any way similar to anything that was said in the Ibsen play. It's kind of more like taking I suppose like when people adapt a Shakespeare film and it becomes 10 Things I Hate About You, it's not like you see 10 Things I Hate About You and go, you rewrote Shakespeare's dialogue. They took the kind of idea of that story and then created a film out of that, which is a new film essentially based on the idea, on the story, on the kind of concept. And that's kind of the realms that we're in with this film. Is it's very much in a long line of cinema adaptations of original source material.
I'd seen the stage production and really loved it, and seen a number of Simon's productions, and was very keen to work with Simon and Ewan. I thought they had such an interesting relationship, and I thought that Simon's style of directing would lend itself really well to film, so I was really excited to be a part of it.
I couldn't understand Hedvig for the life of me, and that was very exciting. I couldn't understand her because I'd never come across any kind of character like her before. So it was exciting and it was kind of scary, and that's what made me want to do it. That's what made me attracted to the project.
I think she's an incredibly... she's a girl who is too intelligent and too sensitive and too imaginative and too much of a dreamer for the world that she's been put into at the time that she's been put into it. So she's kind of someone who's just too brilliant for her environment and too ready to live for her body and her age as well. And I think that's the kind of conflict at the kind of core of her character, is that there's all of the desire to live and the desire to see and dream and be is always in conflict with the kind of things that life is presenting her as the actual possibilities she has. And a lot of teenagers can feel like that, but she's a kind of very, very potent version of that, which is why she ends up living the way that she lives in the film and making the decisions she makes in the film.
There you go. But that says it better than anything I could have said. I don't even know half those words.
We mainly worked on the relationship between Charlotte and Oliver, and we rehearsed. We were just trying to build what that relationship was and trying to give it a history and physicality, and it was important to sort of set that up as naturally as possible.
We actually rehearsed over Skype.
Yeah.
Miranda was working on a project in Los Angeles and had to stay there for that project, and we sent Ewan over to Miranda, and then they sat together at a table in Miranda's living room or kitchen
in the afternoons
while
you were eating breakfast
while I was
Australia.
eating breakfast in Australia I was scouting locations at the time. So I was in the middle of nowhere in Australia freezing on a
Los
laptop
Angeles,
in hot Los Angeles, and they did the scenes next to each other on Skype, and I responded on Skype. And they also just spent time with each other to make sure that they kind of created a connection.
Talked about the history of it and things that had happened in the relationship, just trying to build a backstory to it as much as possible. And it was great that we came up with the Skype because the rehearsal was important. So it was really good that we managed to do that.
It's a place in the south of New South Wales at the foot of a group of mountains, the only mountains that get really cold in Australia, called the Snowy Mountains. And there's a town called Tumut and a town called Batlow that are small towns. Tumut is a very successful logging town, and Batlow is a kind of commercially unsuccessful town in the wake of a cannery, a factory that put fruit and vegetables in cans, shutting down in the late 80s. And so all of those abandoned, kind of broken down things are in Batlow, and all of the kind of logging industry is in Tumut. And so we kind of combined those two towns into an imaginary town. The kind of reason for the locations being the way that they were is I wanted to find a location that could kind of speak. I wanted to set the film in a place that could be in Scandinavia or in England somewhere, or in Europe anywhere, or in the middle of America somewhere that can kind of be totally universal. So, I mean, because the thing about the story is that actually, despite the fact that it seems quite far-fetched in a lot of ways what actually happens to this family, the important thing is that it's happening to real people and to people like us. And I didn't ever want the film to then kind of feel like it was some kind of very particular story set in a very particular country at the other end of the world. I wanted to feel like a story that could take place anywhere. And so the audience doesn't get the possibility of sitting in any kind of distance to the story. They see themselves and they see their own families in it. And so the location I tried to find a location in Australia that and it's quite hard in Australia to find locations that look like anything other than Australia, but that place does exist, and it does look like a lot of other places in the world. So that was the kind of the reasoning behind the locations.